Hi guys and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got the tank review for the brand new American Tier 8 Premium Tank Destroyer, the Roswell XM66F. Now this is a new tank destroyer that is the new Halloween tank that you can pick up, or one of them as I should say, and it's got a pretty cool ability in the Halloween mode. It basically, you can shoot a beam that sucks up, it summons a UFO that sucks up the enemy tank and does damage while it's sucking them up. It's really hilarious, it's really cool. And as a tank in the actual game though, it's actually okay. It's pretty okay tank. I wouldn't say it's incredible, but it's pretty damn nice at what it does. The turret armor is absolutely solid, bounces a lot of rounds, which is glorious. The hull armor is not great, but it's pretty decent against tier 6s and 7s. Once you get in beyond that, though, this hull armor tends to be absolute butter. But you want to be playing this thing hull down if you can. It's also got pretty decent camo, so you can play it like a tank destroyer pretty easily too. So there is that. The aim time on the gun's pretty damn nice. The accuracy's okay. The DPM's on the lower end for these 400 alpha guns, but on the whole, the tank's it's been pretty damn fun to play, to be honest. I've really quite enjoyed it. It does have a turbo as well. It goes at 35 kilometers an hour with the normal speed, and then 45 if you activate your turbo, which has a 2-second downtime, the same as the CS63 or the Cobra T54. And on the whole, I think it's a pretty damn decent tank. I think it's pretty okay. It's not massively too strong. It's not too bad. It's just pretty good, if we're totally honest. The alpha's nice. Like I say, the aim time's good. The mobility's meh. But the armor on the turret's really good. On the whole, it's pretty decent. And the Halloween Monster Mash mode ability that this tank has is pretty hilarious as well. As there is no Monster Mash at this current moment in time, it's not active. I can't show you, unfortunately. But I do know what it's like. It's pretty cool. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into the old statistics of the tank. So, it has a 750 horsepower engine with a 35 km/h top speed and a 12 km/h reverse speed, which has a power to weight of 13.64, which means you do get up to that 35 km/h top speed, but the 35 km/h top speed feels a little bit slow for this tank. And if you were to activate the turbo, which takes 2 seconds, which is not listed in these stats, it takes 2 seconds to activate the turbo, and then you can go up to 45 kilometers an hour. And again, it does hit that 45 kilometers an hour, but I kind of wish there was no turbo and its top speed was just 45 kilometers an hour, if I'm honest, because the turbo can be a little bit clunky at times and a little bit irritating for certain situations. It's good for when you want to get to that aggressive early position, but from then on, if you decide to use it to try and chase damage, it becomes a bit of a pain, because then obviously your accuracy becomes absolutely horrific, and if you have an opportunity to take a shot quickly, you're not going to be able to do it because you're in the turbo and your accuracy is horrific. So I do kind of wish it was just 45 km/h top speed instead of having a turbo, but hey ho. 10% internal fire chance is quite low. Well, that's the lowest it can be, I think, so which is pretty good. 1300 hit points is a decent slab of hit points for a tier 8 TD. They all tend to be not that much in terms of their hit points, so 1300 is okay. 26 degrees the second hull rotation speed is a little bit slow. You want to help that if you can. It's one of those things that I felt was a little bit slow when I was playing it, so I wanted to buff that up with something like clutch braking. You could run a traction system as well if you wanted to, just to make that even better, but it's completely down to you. Now, the ground resistances, soft terrain resistance of 3 is really not very good at all, which means that if you do hit soft ground, it tends to slow you down pretty crazily, and it's not great over that. You got 1.5 on medium and 1.2 on firm. You probably want to think about maybe running off-road driving, but to be honest, with the way the tank is, I don't run off-road driving because there's some perks that I just want over others, right? And off-road driving is one of those that it would be nice because that soft terrain is awful, and generally the terrain distances aren't great. But there's trade-offs, right? There's things that I want to take instead of the off-road driving. But just know that the ground resistances aren't that good, honestly, and that also makes this hull rotation speed not feel that great on certain terrains as well. You got 331 meters of still concealment, which is pretty decent, and with a camo net and a camo perk, you can get that down to about 260 meters of camo, which is really solid for a tank destroyer, and it helps you play that tank destroyer role if you want to, especially if you're in a bottom tier matchup. You've got 380 meters of view range, which is fine for a tier 8 TD, because, I mean, you know, there's a fair few tier 8 TDs that are running 370 or lower, so we'll take 380 every day. That's what a lot of the medium tanks are running, so that's fine. You've got a 16 degrees a second turret rotation speed, which is atrocious. The turret rotation speed is really slow. Again, it's one that you might think you want to help out, but to be honest, I helped out the hull rotation instead to try and, because I could use the hull rotation to help get the turret on target as opposed to using the turret rotation. And especially since this tank has a yaw limit of -30 and +30, which means that the tank has a limited turret traverse. If you don't know what your limit is, it's a limited turret traverse. So it can only look 30 degrees to the left and 30 degrees to the right. You'll see it in the replays. It's not very much. I kind of wish it was more like the T-28 Proto in a way, that it had its turret turn all the way to where the back engine deck is, and then it couldn't turn it to, look over the back of the tank. I do wish it was like that, but it is 30 by 30. You got 20 degrees of elevation, which is fine. 10 degrees of gun depression, which is absolutely fantastic. Helps you use a ridgeline really, really well. And that is exactly where you want to be with the Roswell. You want to be on a ridgeline because your turret armor is pretty damn solid. And you want to be on that ridgeline, bouncing shots off your turret and just delivering the damage that this gun can pack. 0.76 accuracy during rotation isn't actually that bad for a tank destroyer. Turret to tank destroyer, so that's pretty good, and that helps the fact that you can't run vertical stabilizers because you are a TD, so that's decent. You've got a 10.3 second reload, which, like I say, it's not bad by any means, and it feels okay, especially compared to some of the heavy tanks that have 400 alpha. But compared to some of the TDs that have 400 alpha, your DPM is on the lower end at 2.3k, because I'll show you when we get the fully pimped out, when you're facing some of the other 400 alphas, which most of them are American at this point. They tend to be in the 2.4, 2.5, 2.6 range. So that's just something to bear in mind. And there's a fair few 440s and 500s that actually have better DPM than you too. So your DPM is actually on the lower end. But still, when you get it down to about a 7-second reload, it's really not that bad. You've got a 0.34 accuracy, which is pretty decent, and again, you get that down to about 0.28, so that's pretty decent in itself. 3.09 accuracy during movement is atrocious, and you probably want to run and gun to make that better. You can't run vertical stabilizer, so you can't make it better that way, so you want to run something like run and gun just to try and knock that stat down if you can. You've got 2-second aim time, which is great, and you can knock that down to about 1.8. Without a GLD or anything like that, just general crew skills, which is really, really quite nice, or 1.9 actually, I think it is. But it's still, the aim time is very, very nice on this tank. I don't know why it says shots per clip 1, because it is a single fire gun. You've got AP, APCR, and HE, which have 232 pen, 276 pen on the premium APCR, and 60 pen on the HE. You've got 400 alpha and 515 alpha on the HE. Your shell velocity is 1067 with 1240 on the premium APCR. The penetration is pretty decent. I mean, there's a lot of tank destroyers at tier 8 that are naturally starting to push way higher than that. If they've got a 120mm gun like this, they're starting to push 248 as a standard pen and then 290 odd on the premium. But still, 276 on the premium is enough to go through most tanks you're going to face, even at tier 10, unless you're facing something like a Mouse or a Type 5 Heavy. So it's nothing to sniff at all. It's pretty damn good penetration, but it's just note that 232 when you're starting to go against some of the heavily armoured tier 9s and 10s really does struggle. So, yeah, just something to bear in mind that you might want to take a decent amount of premium rounds to use against those super heavy tier 10s that, you're going to face at some point. And it does have a 150% silver bonus, so that's something to bear in mind, that you don't have the best silver bonus in the universe. It's the bog standard silver bonus is what I call it, 150%. So it does make credits, but not the best in the universe. So, let's actually have a look at the armour, and for this, we are going to have a look at Tanks GG, because Tanks GG is the PC website, but the Roswell actually has the same armor model on console as it does on PC, or in the PC files on Tanks GG anyway, so we can actually use the effective armor model viewer, which is really nice. So we're using it to fire the 276 APCR pen, so that's what it's facing currently, and as you can see, it's still very, very red. This turret armor is very, very good. It's 200. If you're firing anything that's 300 plus penetration, try and hit here. You can see this little jutted out bit next to the gun. Avoid the gun mantlet, but shoot the bit next to the gun, because that is actually 218. As you can see, there's random spots where you can pen it. So that's where you want to try and be shooting. If it's sitting in front of you on a ridgeline, you've got 300 plus penetration. But on the whole, this turret armor, as you can see, these cheeks are so good. And it's an auto ricochet angle on the top of the turret as well. The cupolas are pretty, they're pennable, but a lot of the time if you're shooting at these cupolas, that you're probably going to get viewport damage, or you're just going to end up having RNG and hit the cheeks and it'll ricochet. So they are still very difficult things to hit, and if you're on a ridgeline, absolutely solid. Like I say, this turret is absolutely great. I've not feared going in front of things really with this turret, because I still feel like I'm just going to bounce things because of how effective the armour is. It's just this little bit of jutted out armour next to the gun mantlet that can let it down if you're facing the higher pen guns, but realistically, if you're a tier 8 in a tier 8 game, this turret is nigh on impenetrable, which is absolutely beautiful. The hull armour, if you look at it, the upper plate is actually worse than the lower plate. So the lower plate's kind of a bait, but it's still not a good. It's 186 effective, which in a tier 8 game, if you're top tier against tier 6s and 7s, the hull armor is actually decent enough anyway, and you'll bounce a decent amount of shots off of it. But if you're in a bottom tier game, yeah, this is pure cheese. And if you're top tier as well, and you're against other tier 8s, your hull armor is still not that good. But it's still 185, 175 effective. It's still pretty damn decent, really, for what it is. And like I said, when you do get those top tiers, it's going to be really quite a well-armoured tank for facing those lower tiers as well. And if you're on a ridgeline using your gun depression, as you can see, and you've got your upper plate covered, I mean, 250 on the, or 240 on the upper plate is pretty damn good anyway, but the turret armour, wow. That turret armour is, well, that bit's flattened out. So if you're looking at this thing on a ridgeline and it's using its full gun depression and you have about 260, 270, 280 pen, there's this little flat bit here that you can pen for 252, as you see, because we've got 270 odd pen APCR against this at the minute, and it's an 85% chance. So just bear in mind that that little flat bit there is something you can pen, but the cupolas are still a struggle to hit, and the cheeks are so strong. The turret armour on this tank is really, really nice, and that is something to bear in mind for it. You do have 50mm of side armour, so if you wanted to try and side scrape, you could, but there's little bits that are more pennable, as you can see, like 200 effective, so really this little bit of turret ring that juts out actually really stops you from side scraping that effectively in the Roswell. And like I say, you do have this massive engine deck here, which blocks your turret from, which is why I say I kind of wish it went like more like the T28 Prot, where you could get it to look out that way, but it can't. That is as far as the turret will turn. But yeah, that's the armour on the Roswell. Let's go have a look at what we would run in terms of a crew. So we've got the crew here. Let's go stick it into the Roswell. And on this crew, we've got Born Leader, Rapid Reload, Sixth Sense, Situational Awareness, Trap Mechanic, Clutch Braking, Steady Aim, Run and Gun, and Camouflage Expertise. So clutch braking to help the track traverse as much as possible, because like I say, the track traverse is really slow and I kind of want to just help it make it better. Camouflage expertise to make my camo better, because I'm a TD and I like to be able to run like a TD at times in this tank. You got steady aim and run and gun, like I say, to make the gun 10% better in terms of its accuracy and just 10% better on the move. It helps its on the move dispersions a hell of a lot. And the rest of the perks are what you would take in general. And then in terms of equipment, well, I run food naturally, the advanced loader, the optics to help your view range, because you never want to be blind, and the camo net to make yourself as stealthy as you humanly can. And like I say, you want to make DPM 10% better as well, because it's not the best in the universe. So, now that we've got all the stuff on the tank, it now goes with a 28.34 hull rotation, so it's only gained 2.3 on its hull rotation speed, so it's not the biggest gain in the universe. You might want to run the traction system instead of a camo net if you wanted to. If you weren't bothered about the camo, you could run a traction system. Like I say, that in terms of the crew and in terms of the equipment, it's down to how I want to run it, but there's a fair few ways you could probably run this tank to make it better for you. Like, you could run a traction system instead of the camo net to make it faster, to make it go at 38 kilometers an hour, and then to give it that better track traverse. You could run the vents just generally to make it better in all-round play. You know, there's many different ways you could run it. It's completely down to you and how you want to set it up. Same as you could run rapid aim instead of camouflage expertise, for example, just to make the turret traverse better. But yeah, it's all down to your preference. You've now got 2.76 on the soft terrain, 1.38 on medium, and 1.1 on firm. It's still bad terrain resistances, but it's a little bit better with having stuff like Born Leader. You've got 260 meters of still concealment, which is really damn nice. That means you are pretty damn stealthy when you are sitting in a good position behind a bush. You've got 486 meters of view range, which is really good view range. You will be able to see a lot of tanks, and you'll be able to get a decent amount of spotting with that, which is good. You got 17.38 degrees a second on the turret rotation now instead of the 16. It's only gone up a little bit, but we've not done too much to help that. You got 0.59 accuracy during rotation now, which is down from the 0.7 odd that it had, which is still pretty damn good for a tank that can't run vertical stabilizers, especially a tank destroyer like this. You got 7.5 second reload, which you can knock down to about 7 seconds with a food boost, which again, it's not the best, but it's also pretty decent. You know, it's not the worst. You got 0.28 accuracy, which is pretty damn nice. 2.21 accuracy during movement now instead of 3.01, which is okay. It's still not great, but it's better than it was. And a 1.84 second aim time, which is absolutely solid. And this gun, just the aim time zooms in very, very quickly, which is glorious. And yeah, if you were to look at a tank like the T28 that has 400 alpha, let's have a look at what its reload is. 6.64, so it's nearly a whole second better. Let's put this crew, if we can do it properly. Let's put this crew in the T28 prop, because obviously the T28 prop is kind of like it in the fact that it's a bit slower. It's got a limited turret traverse and it's got a 120mm gun, and that has a 7.1 second reload. So you see, it's just things like the 400 alpha guns are slightly quicker at firing than the Roswell, but the Roswell does have other things going for it. Like obviously the tanks like the TS5 and the T28 are naturally going to fire quicker because they don't have a turret, so that's one thing that they make up for. I mean, 6.93. They are faster firing than the Roswell, but it's kind of slightly negligible, right? But yeah, that's the Roswell. It's, like I say, it's a pretty fun tank to play. It's pretty solid in what it does. Go hull down, absolutely laugh at people. And if you're shooting at it, like I say, you can see with the armor model, and it's using its gun depression, that flat bit there is a bit of an easier target to hit. But yeah, on the whole, the Roswell is a pretty damn decent tier 8 tank destroyer. It can use its turbo to get to a position aggressively if it wants to, and when it's hull down, that's its strength. Its turret traverse, its turret armor is absolutely solid. This gun slaps, and I've really enjoyed playing it, if I'm totally honest. I've really enjoyed playing this tank. So yeah, that's the Roswell. As always, everybody, I'm going to send you over to the replays where you can make your own mind up on the tank, see how it handles in-game, and you can make your own mind up as to how it handles and how it looks when it's playing and stuff like that. So as always, everybody, I will see you in the replays. So here we are in the replays with the Roswell, and yes, we're in a tier 9 game to start off, and it's on Fjords, which is recently returned. And on Fjords, we're going to use our turbo. You can see it took 2 seconds to flick into the turbo, and now just look how bad that gun handling is. That gun handling is now absolutely atrocious, because it's the same as what it is on the CS63 and on the Cobra T54. You know, it takes that 2 seconds to get into it, then you have a slightly better engine power in the turbo, and then you also have a better top speed. Like I said, I kind of just wish that the Roswell had that 45 km/h top speed instead of just 35, and then having to have the awkward 2 second downtime to get into your top speed of 45, etc, etc. I just kind of wish it had the better top speed at 45 instead of having the turbo. It's just a little bit awkward, and it means that when you have the ability to shoot someone and it's a quick split second thing, you just can't do it, which can be a little bit annoying. But yeah, on Fjords, we are going to push up to this ridge line here at B8 because we can get hull down here and use our good turret armor. So we take ourselves out the turbo, and I'm quite happy to go in front of these guys, use my turret armor to laugh at them, because like a standard B, that's fully upgraded, he has like 260 odd pen. But I'm not afraid of that, because with my Roswell turret armor, I'm pretty convinced that I will probably bounce most of his shells. So we pop over, bounce a shot off our turret for 360, and then he gets shut down by the Volk from behind us. The Dragon comes in to try and get a shot at us, he bounces off our turret front, we slap another shot into him for 400, and I think, okay, this guy's probably going to die now, but we've got 2 tier 9 tanks flooding in towards him, and they're now going after the brick. So you know what, we're going to go try and help our team in the middle of the map where the 2 medium tanks are, because I feel like the 2 mediums and with a heavy tank going up to support them, they're going to deal with the brick quite easily, and I want to go try and win the middle of the map now, because the middle of the map is also a fairly important thing. To be honest, I didn't want to basically go up to where the mediums are now and then have to trundle up there, take a little bit of time to do it, and then get to the 0 line and have 1 brick between like 4 tanks. I wanted to go try and help the middle if I could. So we put around the corner on this middle area here, because this is a good ridge to counter those that are pushing at E6, and we get shot into the mutts, which he then gets shut down by our friends. We realise that there's tanks rushing up the 3-4 line, the heavy tank line. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and cut them off. We're either going to try and go help the 2 heavy tanks at F4, or we're going to go sit at the position at F5, because you can go hull down there and shoot the people that do cross the 3 line. We unfortunately missed the shot there on the MXAC-48, but it was a little bit of a slim shot to take, so we waited a little bit too long for the gun to get aimed in. And, yeah, we just ended up missing the shot. But we're going to ignore that guy and the AE Phase 1, because what we want to do is get into this position here. On these rocks, if you have 10 degrees gun depression, you can go hull down quite easily in this position. As you can see, we've got an awkward shot. So we go for the lower plate of the mouse chin there. We end up ricocheting, and I go for the premium rounds, because the premium rounds will actually help me go through the mouse chin's cupola here. As you can see, it goes straight through. We're up to 1900 damage, and this is exactly the position we wanted to be in. This TNH just exposes himself a little bit too long, and we get a shot straight through his drive wheel, which tracks him in place. And this is the perfect position for the Roswell. As you can see, we are near enough. As long as we don't sit still, we're near enough invulnerable against these guys. That was a Mauerbrecher APCR round, which is 260 odd pen, straight off our turret front again. And then that's the key with, well, that's the key with any tank, to be fair. If you go hull down, unless you're a Cranvarn, don't sit still, because you make it easy for the enemy to pick out your weak spots. And like, this tank does have weak spots. They're very hard to hit in these cupolas because they're very, very slim. And I mean it, they are very, very slim, so they're very, very hard to hit. But they are positions, they are modules that people can hit if you just give them a chance. So move, wiggle, wiggle, move, duck, dodge, dip, dive, and dodge. Make it as hard as possible. Now, unfortunately, we hit the upper plate there of the mouse chin, and this is where this turret traverse is just a little bit awkward. And, like, when you overturn as well, when your turret is already at its full yaw limit, it just makes it very, very awkward in situations like this to get the shot you want off, because yeah, it's just having that sort of yaw limit is just awkward, and especially with slow turret traverse too. But we finished that game with the epic victory. 1 kill, 3.6k damage. We blocked 1950 damage, which is quite nice. The third class, 1505 base XP. A pretty decent game for the Roswell in a tier 9 game. Pretty average game, really. And yeah, they just showed off, again, that just showed off what it can do. It goes hull down, it laughs, and then you can just work over people with this really quite nice gun. But especially when you're in that sort of situation, that sort of position, the fact that you don't have the best reload in the universe doesn't matter, and the fact that your dispersions aren't the best either, because you're not really moving all too much, so your gun is always pretty nicely aimed in when you have targets in front of you. And the fact that the aim time is only 1.84 with the build that we've got is really, really nice, and means that it takes no time at all to have the gun ready to shoot where you want it to. So as you can see, we're on the second replay, and we're on Serene Coast, and once again, we're using the turbo to get to the position we want to be in, and we want to be in this position over here at C1, because we can go hull down and use this great turret armor. Keep an eye on the Sheridan in behind, because I was like, wait a minute, what's this Sheridan doing? So we go out of the turbo. So if we want to turn around and try and shoot this guy, we can, but he's clearly not coming after us. I was kind of scared that he might have the derp gun and just come up behind us, because that won't be good. But here we are. We're out, like I say, you see him, we're in a tier 10 lobby. We have the AP loaded. We go for the lower plate of the 705A. We're never going to pen a 705A's lower plate, especially at this angle with 236 pens. So we go for the premium rounds, and here we start to work over this tier 10 heavy tank. And like I say, I've got really good turret armor, so I'm not really that fussed about going and sitting in front of this man's gun. Because I'm like, you probably bounce if he goes for the shot. And even if he fires heat, the likelihood is he still might struggle to actually go through my turret front. So I'm pretty confident in this position. I'm pretty confident in a tier 8 TD. That's a really nice thing. So we're just slowly but surely working the 705A out, who is very, very low push in this position. Go for the drive wheel to track him in place. And plus his fuel tank's behind the drive wheel. So I was hoping that maybe I'd set him on fire. But it didn't quite happen. And we're just going to aim for that drive wheel again to keep him pinned. And unfortunately, it doesn't take the track off this time. We switched to HE because with HE, I don't need to overexpose myself to get shot in, because there is quite a few things at the back looking our way. So we load the HE just so we can splash the guy to death. We make sure we get the shot under his turret, and 25 HP gone just like that. That's where you want to load HE for things like that. And we shut down that 705A, because I was having to come quite far over the ridgeline to get the shot in, which was safe from him, but from things that were at the back like this Ruthless, that wouldn't have been a good time. So now the Ruthless is spotted running away, we're just going to start working him over with this gun if we can. Thankfully the AVRE doesn't pen it, so that we can get more damage off on him, but I don't think the AVRE would have penned it actually, because it's got a space diver on the back. And a Gorilla 15 shuts down that Ruthless. So now there doesn't seem to be anything really down at the back. The T100LT is really far advanced, so we put ourselves into the turbo mode so that we can get going and get zooming towards where the damage is. And once again, this is where having a turbo is quite nice, right? Because we can get up to a faster top speed to help us go chasing after that damage. The only thing is, I just kind of wish the tank had the 45km/h top speed instead of just having to use this turbo, because it's just really awkward. It's just really awkward at times to use. And if it had the actual 45km/h top speed without a turbo, I don't think it'd even be that much better, or it wouldn't break the tank any more than that, having the limitation, you know, because at the minute having the 45km/h top speed on the turbo is like, it's a limitation or a balance check, right, as opposed to just having the top speed, because you also get worse gun handling. It makes it awkward. But if it just had 45km/h top speed, I still don't think the Roswell would be that mad. So I just kind of wish it had that 45km/h top speed, because you get to this situation here, we have to stop to make it so that our gun would be able to hit that Bisonte, and just as we get here, a Terran deletes the Bisonte, which means that we're now like, oh, why did I waste the time? We get the shot at the motherland, but unfortunately we miss that motherland because, well, he just moved behind the rock and we couldn't quite see him anymore. So we're now going to move towards where the Ruthless is, because we're going to try and see if we can get the Ruthless shots into him. There is a Leopard 1, though, on the left. It's like, well, hello, Mr. Leopard 1. Don't mind if I get a shot into you. 421, nice roll. And we're just going to look at the Ruthless to see if what he's doing. He is actually low health. I think we want to get rid of that guy from our right. But he gets deleted by the Terran. So we just need to get back in behind where this Motherland, the TD, and the heavy tank are. And I'm thinking, do I switch back into the turbo mode to get behind these guys, or do I stick in the standard mobility? Oh, it's a hard choice, because I'd have to change back out and it will take 2 seconds, but we see that everything is starting to get ahead of us really quickly. And just as we're switching to the turbo, naturally, the Motherland pokes out and drives into the open. And we would have been ready to shoot that guy really quickly if we just hadn't switched into the turbo at that moment. And again, it's this replay is more about how clunky the turbo is and annoying it can be to deny you shots on things in this game. So there's a Minotauro left. He's the last one alive. He shuts down the K91 version 2, hoping to get his side or rear. The AVRE's getting there, though, which means we're unlikely to get the next shot. And we don't, and the AVRE shuts down the Minotauro. And we finish the game with the epic victory. 1 kill, 3.2k damage. The third class, 1481 base XP. A really nice game, again, in a tier 10 lobby, or a pretty average game in a tier 10 lobby, really, for the Roswell there. And it showed off, again, what it can do. It wants to get to that ridgeline, be hulled down, block the shots, and then just keep working people over with this gun. You can use the turbo to get to those aggressive positions early, and then realistically you're not going to use the turbo too much more in the game after you've used it to get to that initial position. And as you've seen, we're going to do it again on this third replay. In this third replay, we are on Thiepval Ridge, and we're going to use we're in a very, very tier 10 game as well. And we're going to go to the hill at E8, E9, because that's just where I like to go, especially if I've got 10 degrees of gun depression. I like to go there, use my gun depression. I can spot out the tanks that are sitting on top of the hill, try and see things that may be sitting along the J line, and you can get shots at people that do sit at G6 as well if they do get spotted, which can be quite nice. And it just generally is quite a nice flank to push at times. It just depends on how hard your team pushes it, and generally how hard their team pushes it as well, because if they have a decent amount of tanks, like 4 or 5 tanks that just push the 0 line and go very aggressive up the 0 line, you can get caught out so easily on this hill, and you will die pretty easily as well, which is sad, sad times. So, yeah, as you can see, we're going at 45 kilometers an hour over this terrain, which is, like I say, it doesn't really struggle too badly to hit this 45 kilometer an hour top speed in the turbo, and we've nearly made it to the position we want to be in without getting spotted, which is absolutely glorious, because sometimes if you get spotted and you make that little cross we just did there, if they have people that are sitting at G6 that are looking this way, or in sort of other locations as well, you can lose a lot of hit points very, very quickly. Now, this position is a little bit awkward because of the turret traverse. It means that I really have to turn the full tank to get shots at people like where that Bayer is there, which does make it a little bit more awkward than if I was just a tank with a turret. But here's where, again, you can just see how little bit awkward it is at times. But we do manage to get the gun in on target to get a shot into the Brask there. We're just looking to see where the Bayer's going, but can't quite get a shot at him. The VZ55 is caught out in the open in the distance. 470 into that guy. That's a nice roll. And he ends up getting shut down by the FV215B. Now we've got shots into the back end of the Bayer. We barely grazed them. We bounced off his ass. Oh, come on. We get a shot into his back end again, and he gets shut down by the griller. We now get spotted and detected, and it's like, okay, someone just shot at us from the right, but we also had the Ferdinand that was the one that spotted us. There is this Valor that we're just trying to see if we can get a shot into, but we can't quite do it. The STRV-103B pokes up and gets a shot into my side, and for doing that, loses most of his hit points, which fed us 1,600 assistance for that, which is absolutely glorious. We'll take that. This is one of those things. You spot this position that we're sitting in here on the hill, you can get a ton of assistance because you are spotting them. This Ferdinand comes over to try and get a shot into us again. We go for the weak spot there on his cheeks, but unfortunately we ricochet because we just hit the upper plate. And now we get the shot through that little weak spot on his cheeks. That weak spot on the cheeks of the Ferdinand is weak, but it's not as weak as it used to be. It can actually ricochet more shots now than it used to be able to. I think you actually used to be able to overmatch it back in the day, but it's not quite like that anymore. But you can still, if you've got a good pen, go straight through it, because the thickness of the Ferdinand has pretty thick armour, but those cheeks are the weak spot. As you can see, we'll go straight through it again, and it just negates all of that frontal armour that Ferdinand has. So we get a nice shot into that Ferdinand side. We're going for the kill now on the Ferdinand. We shut him down. We do get detected, and I was thinking, well, something would have shot me by now, right? That was from something sitting at the back. We switched to APCR to shoot the 50 TP, because 236 pen isn't always guaranteed to go through it. And there we go, we get shot by something that's firing APCR from the back. And it's like, why didn't it shoot me earlier when I was up here shooting this Ferdinand? That was a bit of a late shot. But it's now looking at us. I try and pop a blind shot to see if we can get a shot into him. The Valor's now in a position where we can see his ass. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to pop up alongside this Skoda to see if we can get a shot in. And unfortunately, he just gets beyond the building before we can get the shot into his ass. And the E5 ends up shutting it down. We're now... The STRV-103B was the thing that shot at us from the back for 400 earlier on. So what we're going to do is we're going to push forward and get shots into this 50 TP, because everyone's pushing aggressively. We want to push over and get under the ridgeline if we can. We shut down the 50 TP with the shot. We're up to 3.5k damage, 2.3k assistance. We end up spotting the Waffenträger Alfie 100 from the back, and the Waffle gets absolutely deleted. Well, we were spotting it with like 3 other people, so we end up sharing the assistance for about 800, which is decent still, and he ends up getting shut down. Now we know where the final 3 tanks are. They're all behind this ridgeline in front of us, so we're going to pop the turbo mode to make sure that we can get to this ridgeline quickly before our guys, and then we can start putting some shots into these Centauros if we can. Hopefully they don't look at us as well. So, as you can see, the turbo is kind of useful for this sort of thing as well, because it also gives you that little bit of an extra boost as well when you're going up this hill. And now we're close enough to get some shots into the Centauro. We get rid of the turbo, and we're just going to pop over and get a shot into this Barask if we can. And unfortunately, just as we fire, the Barask gets shut down by the Kriller 15. Oh, bad timing. And now the other Centauro is looking at us on the left, so it's like, okay, you know what, we're going to go after this other Centauro that's being shot at by our heavy tank. So we try and snap the shot into his side, but he ends up pulling forward again. It's bad timing once again. We go for the shot to track the Centauro to also pen it, and unfortunately we don't track and pen the Centauro, but we do get some of the tracking assist. Oh, that last bit was pure pain. It was bad decision, and a bit of unluckiness. But we do finish the game with a really great total in a tier 10 game. We finished with 3.4k damage, 4k assistance, that's what, 7.4k combined, really nice for a tier 8 tank destroyer. Second class, 1891 base XP. A pretty damn nice game in a tier 10 lobby for the Roswell. Once again, showing off what it does. Hull down, damage, spot, you know, the basics, essentially. And we're on to the final replay of the video, which is the best base XP total I've had in the tank. And that is one thing for you, if you end up getting a really high base XP game, and by that I mean like 2k, the tank, you probably won't get the ace, essentially, because I believe the tank is... basically what happens on when a new tank comes out, and it happens for both the XP requirements for a ace tanker, or for the, you know, the mastery badges, and for the MOE as well. And that is that they are set until you get the live server data, which is usually a day later. They are both set to the highest requirements of a tank at the tier in that class. So this would be at the highest tier 8 tank destroyer base XP requirements for an ace tanker, and obviously the highest requirements for an MOE as well, so it's hard. So it basically make it really hard for people to get first day MOEs and aces like it used to be, because, you know, back in the day you could get first day aces and 3-mark a tank really easily if you wanted to, because the requirements would be dead low, especially if the tank was good. So yeah, the base, so that would probably be I'd hazard a guess that the base XP requirements would be something what you've got to get an ace for in something like a Panzerjäger. So the Panzerjäger, the NM116, is something like 2.3k base XP to 3 mark, not to 3 mark, to ace tanker, sorry. Because it's just an absolutely nutty tank destroyer. And realistically, if I was to say that and you wanted to pick up an American tank destroyer, I'd just still say pick up the NM116 because the Panzerjäger is an absolutely nutty tank. And while this tank is nice and it's pretty comfortable to play, if I'm honest, it's a pretty okay tank to play. It's pretty good. It just doesn't match up to what the Panzerjäger is because the Panzerjäger is pretty crazy. It's a pretty nutty tank and it's pretty overpowered. So it is what it is because it's got fantastic DPM, fantastic gun, fantastic mobility, fantastic camo. You know, it's got everything going for it. But yeah, so if you do end up like 2.1k base XP or something like that and end up having a first class and you sit there going, how isn't that an ace? It's because it's set to whatever the hardest tank of the class and tier is. So yeah, there is that. So this is the fourth and final game. And we are on this map, which we are top tier, which is this map. What is it? Redshire. Yes, Redshire. And we're up to 2.7k damage already. And we're just starting to put some shots into this kaiju. Like I say, when this tank is top tier, it's really nice. You're not top tier that often, as you've seen with the first three replays, who were all two tier 10, very tier 10 games and then one tier 9 game. But when you are top tier, this tank is very, very nice because you've got good penetration for your tier, you've got decent DPM, you've got pretty damn nice armor, you've got mediocre mobility, but on the whole, we're having that fantastic turret armor and that nice hard-hitting gun with good penetration, etc., and good, pretty decent accuracy as well. It just does really solidly. So we get a nice shot into the Iron Rain there. We get a nice roll, 415 to shut down the GW Panther, and now we're going to close the distance on the Iron Rain, because the Iron Rain is still alive, but then as we push forward, we spot the T-28, so we slap a shot straight through the lower plate of the T-28 HTC, and you can see we're aiming for that little weak spot on the side. And the shot goes low and wide and ends up tracking and penning it anyway, which is really harsh for that T-28 HTC, but it is what it is for that guy. So the Iron Rain's running away behind the base, and look where our light tank is. He's not spotting anyone. There's 4 heavy tanks left, and we know that there was some heavy tanks spotted on the 9-0 line. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to ignore the Iron Rain, just leave the light tank to go after it. We're just going to keep our eye on that right-hand side, though, in case he decides to poke over and start shooting at us. But as you can see, the DA goes after the Iron Rain, so we're going to go after the heavy tanks. So we're expecting they're along the 0 line and pushing that B8 location. So we switch the turbo on so I can try and push up as quickly as possible to the ridge line in front and get under it if we can, and that way we can use our turret armor if they are still at E0, because what tends to happen a lot of the time is some of the tanks will end up pushing to where the Tiger P and the other heavy tank is currently spotted at B8, but then others will end up sitting at E0. But as we're starting to push, all four English, hard. All 4 heavy tanks end up getting spotted in that position over there. So it's like, okay, you know what, there's no point in climbing this hill anymore. We managed to get the shot RBRT'd into the Tiger P, which shuts him down. As you can see, all 3 tier 8 heavy tanks that are left are spotted over here. So we're just going to try and push in behind them if we can, see if we can get some shots into their ass, and you know, push the tempo, essentially, and get this game finished. So we aim, get for the shot, straight for 91 into the back of the Asterion, because unfortunately he lost most of his hit points there, just as we went for the shot. Now we've got the side of the IS-6 Black. We're aiming the shot, and unfortunately, we hit the dirt there. We're then taking a hit from the Carnarvon, who gets shut down by the ISU-130 from behind. And it's a shame that that shot missed on that IS-6. And now the IS-6 actually charges into the heavy tank and the TD that's on the other side of the ridge instead of fighting us, which is really, really sad because that means that we're not going to get any more damage into this IS-6. But we do finish the game with a really nice total at 5.4k raw damage and 1300 assistance. The 3 kills, we finished with the victory. 1979 base XP, which is a first class with the high caliber and the Confederate, and yeah, top of the team. And that was the best base XP game I've had in the tank so far in the 20 odd games I've played in it. So yeah, the Roswell, it's a pretty damn nice tank destroyer. It's got limits. It's pretty well balanced if we're realistically honest. And it's got strengths like the really good turret armor, nice gun, but it's a little bit limited in its mobility and the turret traverse. And it's also got a pretty damn cool ability in the Monster Mash mode. So as always, everybody, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.
A great success!